Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. Saturday morning comics with you. It's been a hot minute. I was checking over my YouTube channel logs, and it looks like it's been about 1 month between vacation time and sporting event Saturdays. It's been a bit challenging to be here with you all on a Saturday, but here I am alone. The girls are getting a chance to sleep in on a Saturday. So I'm just letting them have it. We'll see if they come in and decide to join us. But I got a ton of things to talk about, a ton of books, a ton of comics, a ton of new purchases and things to share. So lots of goodies going on here. I hope everyone's having a nice Saturday. I hope they're having decent weather where they are, because I know around here we're preparing for at least a tropical storm, which we don't really get in my area. So definitely some excitement in my region. Speaking of people in my region, we got Kevin from Entropy and Comics in the chat. How you doing, Kevin? I hope you're preparing, getting sandbags if you need them for anything that might come in your way. We got Chaos and Comics. What's going on, Chris? I know I don't know if your area handles intense rain well in Vegas, but hope that's preparing well. We got Gore Vidal. What's going on, friend? I hope you're doing well. Thank you for the reply to my email this morning, and got my brain stirring as well today. We were talking back and forth about the show I did last night with Dan, talking about movies that vibe, movies that have the same sort of energy or themes. Sometimes it's a character that might be in common, or a setting, or a theme, or a story plot line. And so Dan and I did the vibe check show last night, talking about some movies that vibe together. And Gore had a great email question, and then we went back and forth a little bit on it. So thank you for that. What's up, Eric? Good morning to you, sir. Happy Saturday. JP, good morning to you. He says he crashed last night. Hey, it happens. It happens, my man. I totally understand. And I'm going to be on a show with JP tomorrow night. If you're watching D&D over on JP's channel, I will be over there. Got my man, what is Downright Nerdy Podcast in the chat by Disney Homie. I hope things are going well for you, neighbor to the north. I don't think you guys are going to get too heavy of rain way up there. It sounds like the hurricane is shrinking down. It's out over the ocean and then parts of Mexico today. And then we won't get rain until basically early Sunday morning. And then all through Sunday into the late Sunday night, and then maybe parts of Monday. That's what it's going to happen around here. What is up, Adam? Hello to you, sir. Hope your Saturday is off to a good start. So I have been away for a bit. If you're following me on Instagram, you've seen where I've been traveling. Sorry. Where I've been traveling, visiting with family for a little vacation, and then back to work. So much going on. It's been really tough to keep this schedule for Saturdays going. It may just be part of John's Comics with Teens. Now that I've got two girls and they've often got sporting events on Saturday mornings early, it's been tricky. So the last two Saturdays, we've had volleyball tournaments where at 8:30, I'm watching a game. It's already going. Like, we're already there. So it's been tricky. It's been hard to kind of keep it together. But today, something in my throat. Whew. Sorry. Might be part of my allergies. I don't know. Today I'm here. Today I got books. Today I got things to discuss. New purchases. Obviously a brand new omnibus behind me that I have not even taken out of the plastic. An absolute beastly omnibus. Maybe the largest omnibus I've ever purchased. I will have to do a video on that at some point. I got a small stack of single issues. In fact, all Marvel. I got some trades, some hardcovers, and then actual novels that I've been reading lately. So I'm going to run through a lot of that stuff today with you guys. Plus some shows I've been watching, some things I've been enjoying. I saw some movies. And then whatever you all in the chat have been enjoying. So if you want to chime in at any point, you can dive right in. The thumbnail for today is all about the final issue of Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil. And what a sort of triumphant finale Chip and Marco put together. This was a very entertaining run. I think it belongs on the list of great Daredevil runs, which is an incredibly storied list. You know, you look at obviously Miller and Jansen, even Stan Lee at the beginning, but you know, among my favorites are the Bendis, Brubaker, Wade, David Mack runs that I think are just all really, really entertaining. In fact, anyone who's never read Daredevil, I would say start with that Kevin Smith, Joe Quesada era, which leads, you know, like 10 issues later, I think, leads into David Mack, which leads into Bendis, which leads into Brubaker, which leads into Wade. If you read from Quesada to Wade, I think you would have not only just a lot of good story and a lot of great art, but I think some of the all-time great runs, and they bleed into one another. Really, really worth your time. Plus, you get Chris Samney on art. Yeah, you get Alex Maleev on art. Just some really talented people. I think the Zdarsky Marco Cicchetto run deserves to be up there with those other guys. And I think in the end, hopefully Marvel gives it the omnibus treatment and really lets people enjoy it in a collected format, because it's really worth the time. Let's see. Star Trek comics. Nice. Good morning, Chris. The final issue, of course, has to do with the wrap up of what happened in issue 13. Issue 13 was the big showdown between Daredevil and the sort of evil power players that had been manipulating him and the Punisher in their sort of crossover storylines. The Jason Aaron Punisher and the Zdarsky Daredevil crossed over a ton. And the issue 13 was the big showdown between these. I hesitate to call them devils, but certainly these demonic gods that were playing power games with these mortal characters. And now we've got issue 14, which sort of is more like an epilogue issue. It just sort of is the punctuation mark on the end of what Zdarsky was doing. Gore's going to read it in the coming weeks. There you go. Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a run that is worth the time. If nothing else, Marco Cicchetto's artwork consistently is worth the money. It's just really top flight art, really great visuals. I think for me, the first half of the Zdarsky run is the best half, but it all works. It all works for me. What's up, Michael? Happy Saturday to you. I hope things are going well. Gore says Miller's shadow hovers over creators and writers. I mean, truthfully, this is true. And I was thinking about this the other day. The reason why I usually put Miller at the top when I'm ranking my favorite Daredevil artists and writers and runs is because of the sheer magnitude of the work that he had to do. 2 books a month, and he was writing and drawing them. 2 books a month. That's a ton of work. Also, he was reinventing the character, whereas in a lot of ways, Bendis, Brubaker, Wade, Zdarsky are all sort of standing on his shoulders. What is the line that Goldblum says in Jurassic Park? You stood on the shoulders of geniuses and you took the next step, right? And I think I can still be impressed by Bendis's run, which is probably my second favorite because it is just massively entertaining and he weaves together some really great story threads. But his run doesn't work without Miller's run. And unsung hero Klaus Janson, of course. So that's usually why I give Frank Miller top spot, is just because the sheer magnitude of the workload he was doing and the idea that he was basically reinventing the wheel when it came to that character. So where does Zdarsky fit in the end? it's tricky. I certainly feel like he's top 10. Is he top 5? I don't know. He's not top 3 for me because I do think it's Miller, Bendis, Brubaker. Then it's a question of what are the other 2 in my top 5. David Mack and Mark Waid are probably 4 and 5. And those would be my 5 favorite Daredevil runs. And then Zdarsky is in there somewhere with Smith, Lee, Nesenti, in that group somewhere. That's where Zdarsky fits. So probably in the second 5 of the top 10. What is up, Crystal? Happy Saturday to you. I hope you're doing well, Crystal. Good morning. Miller's Daredevil, including Elektra Assassin, Elektra Lives, it is in their own universe with like the original TMN team. Yeah, sure. There you go. That makes sense. What is up, Roscoe? Good morning to you. How you doing, sir? I hope things are going well. You probably need some time and space to really place it. Yeah, I think a reread would certainly help because I've read Miller's Daredevil, at least certain stories like Born Again, I've read many, many times. Bendis's run I've read at least 4 times. Brubaker at least twice. I would like to read the Chris Samney, Mark Waid run again of Daredevil. I haven't read that one but the one time. I really loved it though. What's up, Jeff? Good morning. How you doing? Unfortunately, except for Waid, all Daredevil runs seem samey. Samney. Charles Soule's run was good. It softened the excitement of the first 2 trades. All right, I get you. If Zdarsky was better, it's pretty marginal. There you go. What's up, Rod the Rican in the chat? Good morning to you, sir. So that was for me, that was the big book of the week to read, and it did not disappoint. It did not disappoint. So I'm going to set that one over there. Let's get into, I want to talk some novels. I'm going to save the rest of the comics for a little bit. So for those that like novels, I got a handful of books that I want to talk about. First up, this is my younger brother's book, and I'm sorry that you can't just go and buy it. He only printed like 10 of these, and he gave them just to family and friends. He did it all himself, so it's all self-published, and it's his own book. I even had to like mark some grammar and some spelling stuff for him, but this was just his. He wrote it for his daughter and son, my niece and nephew, and it's a kind of young adult, mid-grade sci-fi story, family-based. It's like a little Interstellar mixed with a little Narnia, but for kids, like kids age. So I read my brother's book over break. This one's about 600 pages, highly entertaining. I think he did a very good job considering he didn't have an editor and he did it all on his own and really didn't have a lot of feedback. He just had to edit all on his own. Very impressed by my younger brother for pulling that off. So I read that for him over break. I've been reading Mists of Avalon. I'm sure Gore is familiar with Marion Zimmer Bradley's retelling of the Arthur legend. This is a massive book. It's over 1,000, or right around 1,000 pages, but it's broken into blocks. I think there's 4 parts to this, and I did the first 2, and then I paused because it was just a lot to take in, and I wanted to get to something else. But I've been blown away by it. I did read in researching, because this is a very old book from the 70s, my old book. I know that there was a lot of scandals with her household and the way she treated her daughter and some things going on there. So casting aside what I don't necessarily know about her personal life, I did enjoy this sort of revisionist look at the Arthurian legend and a sort of female or feminist perspective on what was largely a Christian fable, the idea of a king chosen by God kind of thing, right? So I really enjoyed the first part, which focused on basically the conflict between goddesses. This concept of like female sorceress connected to Earth and the sun and the moon versus a Catholic church or a Christian church based on like men in power and priests and cardinals and popes, and the conflict between basically a patriarchy and a matriarchy. And I thought it was very interesting the way this was portrayed here in these early blocks. So I'm definitely going to finish this. I'm going to keep going with it. I just paused at different points to kind of appreciate it. Gore says it's funny, but I was reading a chapter from Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles this morning. Yeah, my brother, I was impressed. That he's a hardworking guy, so to fit all that in and still write a book, it's amazing stuff. So those are two of the novels I was working on. The last one is a sequel, and I had read the first book not quite 3 years ago, but somewhere around there. I read Name of the Wind. This is a fantasy novel by Patrick Rothfuss. For those that don't know, Patrick Rothfuss, he's really only written a handful of books, and he's working on the third book in this trilogy. I read book 2, The Wise Man's Fear, and it centers around a young man whose journey through this unusual fantasy world covers his early youth as a young man becoming an orphan, all the way through to his adulthood. And it's sort of an epic journey, but it captures elements of, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. So many great tropes of fantasy all kind of wrapped into one really exquisitely written novel series. I thought this book was an absolute worthy sequel to The Name of the Wind. I'm very sad that he's in that George R.R. Martin style of each book takes massively longer than the next to publish. So I think he published the first book, and then it took 4 years to get the sequel, and it's way over 8 years, and we haven't gotten the third one yet. So if you are a fantasy novel reader, if you do like fantasy literature, I highly recommend The Name of the Wind and Wise Man's Fear. They are just really, really great. They're not your typical dragon sword kind of stories. In fact, it's far more about story. It's far more about literature. The story is told in flashback. The entire concept is that a gentleman known as the chronicler, a person who tells stories, is traveling from town to town, and he stumbles upon an inn. And the man running the inn is very clearly a hero of old, and he is in hiding. And the chronicler knows who he is, recognizes him, and convinces him to tell his story so that the chronicler can write it down. And the hero basically says, it'll take 3 nights for me to tell my story the way I want to tell it. If you're willing to sit and enjoy the after hours at my inn, I'll tell it over these consecutive nights. So book 1 is the first night, where he's telling the story of his childhood and being abandoned and his parents' murder, and then his finding his way to school and a place where he could find home. And that was the first night of telling his story, and it ends kind of on a cliffhanger. And the second book is him on his second night telling them about his journey from school into sort of, I don't want to say maturing, but certainly early adulthood, basically. So it's a fun way to kind of capture his story as you jump back and forth between him sitting in the inn telling the story and living it out. Really good stuff. So absolutely loved it, and I'm sad that I got to wait until Patrick Rothfuss actually writes the the third book or gets it published. So hopefully it happens, and he, doesn't have the George R.R. Martin problem of we're waiting for book 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever it's going to take. A couple other friends jumping in the chat. Well, one specifically, we got Schultz. What is going on? One love from Chicago. One love to Chicago. I hope your Saturday is kicking off well. Oh, there's a second one. We got Mark from Legion of Comics. I hope you're having a good weekend. I know that. Are you going? I think you said you were going to go see Blue Beetle this weekend, right? Are you going to? Did you go this morning with the kids? Hope you had a good experience. I'd love to hear. I know you save your reviews if you want to hear Mark's reviews from movies he sees on the weekends. He usually on his Sunday show, the spoiler show, he will spend time catching you up on all of that. So thank you. Tune in, and Mark will probably give you the sounds like he's going this weekend after work. Okay, but he'll probably give you the breakdown on Sunday night when he does his live stream. So tune in for that. What's up, Terry? Bronze Page. He enjoyed your movie video last night. Yes, enjoyed Carol Lombard on TCM. Love TCM. Classic old movies. Absolutely worth the time. So there it is. Big spoilers there. 8:30 tomorrow night Eastern. So be there for that. Listening to you makes me think of Ian McEwan's Lessons from earlier this year. It touches on some themes from our email and the book you talked about just now. Excellent book by the Atonement writer. Yeah, for sure. And he's a very talented writer, Ian McEwan. I can't remember. I know I read Atonement, but I don't know that I've read any of his other ones. But yeah, very talented. My coffee just arrived. My wife sort of popped in, and I got my Ted Lasso mug. So cheers to you all. So those have been the novels that I've been reading, non-graphic, but just traditional novels. I tend to be a fantasy novel reader. It's what I get the most enjoyment out of. I do dabble in other genres as well. Love a good detective story, and love a good John Krakauer nonfiction book. But at this point in my life, I'm reading so many comics. The novels tend to wait until I have a big vacation time where I can settle in and actually power through a few. Speaking of powering through a few, I snagged this compendium of top 10 by Alan Moore. This is, for those that don't know, this is technically a DC series, but it doesn't connect to the DC universe at large. This is Alan Moore basically telling his version of a city where pretty much everybody is a superhero in some way or is super in some way. And the police force, known as Top 10, that are in charge with kind of keeping the peace and investigating the dark and intense crimes that occur. I had never heard of this before. I had read Brian Michael Bendis's series from Image called Powers, which is very similar in concept, but not very similar in execution. I loved Powers. I ended up reading Powers. I think I went through the first 10 trades of Powers and really enjoyed it. I never finished it, but at some point I stopped in there. For this, the compendium collects the first 12 issues, which was the main story that he did. And then it collects several 5-issue miniseries that went along with it later on. I want to say there's 3 of those. So in the end, what is that? About 25 comics are in here. I stopped after the main story. So I read the original 12-issue maxi series, if you want to call it that. And it's wonderful. It's really, really great. For fans of things like Gotham Central, or like I mentioned, Powers, I think you would really enjoy Top 10 from Alan Moore. Obviously, if you're a Watchmen, Swamp Thing, V for Vendetta fan, you already know Alan Moore and you like his stuff. This is just something else to add to your enjoyment. The first 12 issues, I thought they were great. The art is by Gene Ha and does a really great job of getting into the complex lives and problems that these police officers have in this super-powered city. So I know that later, Alan Moore dabbled in this universe with other character stories and other books beyond the top 10 main storyline. So I know that there are other compendiums capturing other stories and within this universe. And my LCS owner who recommended this did say, hey, when you finish, check in and I'll let you know about other books that you can read in this universe. So again, so far, I'm basically halfway through the compendium, but I've read the main story, which is this 12-issue maxi series that kind of captures the city, the universe, the main characters, and the dramas that they're going through. Next, what I've got are the 3 mini series that focus on an individual character's story. So there's 3 of those coming up. So top 10, I was really impressed by it, and I think it's absolutely worth the time. The compendium's not too expensive either. It was $60 for basically 25 issues of comics. So $2 a book, a nicely bound soft cover. And I was very pleased by it. And hopefully at your shop, you get your discount and things. We got cardstock variant. What is happening? Hang loose, sir. Hope things are well. What's Watchman? I don't know. He's a super villain. He has a watch and he just, shines it in people's eyes and they get blinded by the little reflected light. Comics and books complement each other in my mind. It's a wonderful balance. I've started writing down in a journal my favorite short stories. Comics and books are much harder to pin down. And I think there's definitely, even in my mind, I don't like neglecting traditional novels because I love reading comics and I love enjoying comics, but I don't want to neglect good literature. And I try to, and I don't want it to seem like work, but I also want to make sure that I am spending time enjoying what literature has to offer, whether it's a graphic novel, an individual single issue, or an actual novel. I try to broaden my exposure to good works. So that's just me. Todd says top 10 is a fantastic series. Moore was doing great work in the early 2000s. Tom Strong is an excellent series as well. And I think is that one of the spin-offs, Todd? Because I think that's what I heard. There were a couple of good ones that one of the guys at my shop was telling me, because he loves Alan Moore and he was telling me top 10 is one of his favorites and that there were these other spin-offs to watch out for. So good stuff. I appreciate if anybody enjoyed it like me, that's great to hear. Being punctual is his super. Isn't that the Clock King? Sounds like the Clock King also from Batman, right? Let's get into something more recent. Obviously, a lot of that stuff was a lot older. Here is a trade paperback that I read that just got dropped last month. Absolutely a phenomenal read and definitely going to be on my list of the best books from this year. That is Junkyard Joe. And obviously this is Jeff Johns' connected universe stuff because he had done Geiger through Image Comics a little over a year ago. And I read issue 1 of Geiger. I thought it was good, but not great. I didn't love it, but I liked it. Then he followed up with Junkyard Joe, which is basically a character who appears briefly in Geiger, I guess, in the later stories, getting his own prequel book. And this is fantastic. I even gave it to my younger brother when we were in Hawaii. I was reading his book. He was reading this comic. Phenomenal. So if you have the, what is it? $12, $14 to spare, this is worth getting. And it stands alone. You don't need to read Geiger first. It's almost completely unrelated to anything else. And it just absolutely slays. Obviously, Gary Frank on artwork is always going to be a treat. Definitely worth the time if you haven't seen his work in other books as well. I think Gary Frank is incredibly talented. Jeff Johns, we know, is a talented writer. Anybody who's read comics just knows that Jeff Johns can write. This might be one of my favorite things Johns has ever done. Obviously, I'm a Green Lantern guy. You can see the Green Lantern goodness all around me. So I'm a little biased towards Green Lantern when it comes to Jeff Johns, but if I'm willing to say this goes on the shelf next to that, that's high praise from someone like me. And Mark is right there with me. And again, I think a lot of people have been saying this a lot, about Junkyard Joe, which is why I was really excited and anticipating this trade. And when it dropped, I made sure that I got my new comic book day extra discount when I snagged this off the shelf because I knew that it was going to be something enjoyable to read. Stu is in the chat. What's going on, Dr. Doom fan club? He says, good morning. Junkyard Joe's fantastic. Glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, because Stu is one of those guys recommending it just like Mark. And as they were reading the single issues and telling me how good they were, I was just, ready and waiting for that trade to drop. Reading Joe made his ginger appearance sad. Geiger is what he meant. Sorry, his Geiger appearance sad. Yeah, so I have not finished Geiger, but I do hear that he basically has this cameo that's kind of, now in retrospect, kind of tragic. And I don't know, Mark, if you've heard if there's a sequel to Junkyard Joe coming along at any point, but I would be there for it. I would absolutely be ready for it. And the next trade that I'm really anxious to get is the sequel to Human Target, which I believe is coming here soon. The second volume of Human Target. Oh, no, it did drop. That's in my reading box. So my to be read box includes the second volume of Human Target. And I'm absolutely anticipating that to be a phenomenal second volume. And that might also make my best of 2023 because I'll finally have finished those two this year. And I think the final issues of those runs both dropped this year too. So there you go. Todd saying, I believe Tom Strong's name is mentioned in top 10, but it's not a spin-off. Tom Strong is its own thing. Strong is Moore's version of the pulp adventure hero. There you go. Let's see. I'd follow Johns to the gates of Valhalla. He's proven himself time again. He really has. He really has. So Junkyard Joe, big thumbs up, high recommendation. You should check it out if you can. Definitely take the time. Let's see. What do we got next? Let's finish my books that I got the last 2 weeks. This is where Mark can be like, all right, John, you got only X-Men books. I'm out of here. But still much love. I appreciate it. So there were 4 X-Men books that I got in the last 2 weeks. They include 2 issue number 1s. So they launched Children of the Vault issue 1, which is really a Cable and Bishop story. And then they launched Dark X-Men issue number 1, which is really a Madeline Pryor Goblin Queen story. I thought both of these were solid, not amazing. I enjoyed Vault more, but that's probably because I like Bishop and Cable more. So they're, I think in that way, it's one that I'm a little more excited about. Plus, the Children of the Vault storyline has been among my favorites in the Hickman era. Sadly, this doesn't involve Sync. It doesn't involve Laura Kinney. So in that way, it maybe is not as exciting as it could have been, but hopefully they'll come around at some point. But those are 2 issue number 1s that came out in the last couple of weeks. Let's see. He says, yes, there'll be more to Junkyard Joe, but not next. He's continuing by expanding the unnamed universe with another volume of Geiger and Red Coat. I'm waiting on Red Coat. Ooh, I don't know. That must be a character from Geiger that I don't know about. He introduced Red Coat in the 80-page one-shot. He's an immortal from the colonial days. Very exciting. So it's nice that Johns is going to be able to create his own image universe that he can then explore and play in. That's kind of cool. Wish there were more X books to choose from. 2 a week is about what I can do, but most weeks I don't have to worry about 2. The other books I got, of course, were, Storm has her own comic, basically, X-Men Red, which is really becoming an action war comic at this phase. As Earth is dealing with its problems, Mars is dealing with its problems. We've got a sort of civil war happening on Mars with Storm leading one side and Genesis, who is Apocalypse's wife, leading the other side. And this is basically the first part in an ongoing war that I think is going to basically take over the next big arc of X-Men read. So I'm definitely excited for that. And this might be my favorite of the four. I think they give Storm a really great moment here. I like the character of Genesis a lot. And I think if this story can really be an interesting battle between these two powerful ladies, I think you get a really quality, action-packed war story out of it. Eric says, I'm here for the X, John. Keep going. I got you, brother. I got you for sure. Todd says, looking forward to more Geiger, and Junkyard Joe is his favorite read of the year so far. It's hard to argue with that. I think it absolutely belongs in that category for sure. Bronze Page says, where should I start reading X-Men for my 100th time, giving it a restart? Here's what I would say. It's really hard right now because they want to do what comic book fans really say that they want, which is everything's based on continuity. It is the most continuity heavy comic out right now. X-Men is all based on content. There is nothing else. There is no one-shot standalones. There's nothing. It's all interconnected. And in that way, to your point, Terry, it becomes very hard to dive in somewhere. Here's what I'll say. If you have read House of X, the launch of Hickman's era, you could probably pick up the Hellfire Gala, which was a one shot that basically was like, if you took the Hickman era and imagine it as a bunch of marbles, the Hellfire Gala was like firing that marble that scattered all the other ones. So if you read the Hellfire Gala and you feel like you understood it, more or less, then I would say you're set. You've caught up. If you need more, I think last year they did Inferno and X Lives and X Deaths of Wolverine, which is ultimately like 12 issues of reading, probably something like that. Those set up Moira McTaggart as the villain. They've really made her the heel. She's done a major heel turn. And that's what the Hellfire Gala showed us, was the villainous Moira at her worst. The Hellfire Gala just happened, 3 weeks ago. If you read that, it's basically right where we are going forward. And then you can pick and choose what you want to read. I think the most important book on the shelf is Immortal X-Men and then the regular X title. Those two are the only ones I think you have to read to follow the main story. Immortal X-Men has been the best X title the last year. Just not even close, in my opinion. I think Kieran Gillen gets it and does a great job. I think Lucas Wernick, I think he's still doing the art. Yeah. Is a phenomenal artist. I even bought one of his mono prints because he's a digital artist. I think he's a phenomenal artist. If I ever get to meet him at a con, he's definitely doing a remark for me. He's just absolutely phenomenal. So I love Immortal X-Men, but that's me just choosing to like follow the main title. X-Men and Immortal X-Men are the main titles. So as far as a launch, Hellfire Gala, this new Hellfire Gala is big. You got to read that one. That's a pivotal moment. This explanation has too much content. It's fact. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. We got Zen Multiverse in the chat. Yes, House and Powers for Life. I love the relaunch. I think is it demanding a lot? Absolutely. But in the same way that a lot of comics demand a lot, if they are continuity heavy, they demand a ton. And the beauty of it is, if you don't mind digital reading, I think this is the perfect thing to have on a Marvel app, is just go through and be like, I'm going to read all of Marauders and just plow through Marauders. Because these books read quick. Modern comics, as most of you know and mention a lot, don't take a ton of time to read. You could plow through these books and be totally caught up on a given run. Hey, I want to read Immortal X-Men. Boom, read the 14 issues now and just plow through. Although the app is usually a couple of months back, you could still read a ton. So it's a great tool if you don't mind reading digitally. Tony, what's up? Good to see you, sir. Hope things are going well. So those are the X books. Immortal X-Men was the last one that I had to share. And obviously this one takes off a lot from the Hellfire Gala. Big important things continuing on here. This is a Charles Xavier focused issue for the most part. Immortal X-Men kind of jumps from key character to key character each month, and you get a chance to see what they're up to and what they're doing for sure. An issue can take 2 to 5 minutes of reading. Absolutely, Jay. And I think some of them are in the 2-minute category a lot, for sure. What's up, Pedro? Pew pew. How you doing, sir? Shop is here. What is going on, Shop? That means we got to say hello to John Doom. Where is he? Where you at, John Doom? Where you at, brother? There he is. What is up, Doom? Doom. How are you doing, sir? Good to see you, Shop. Let's see. Let's get back to JP says, I wouldn't mind if there weren't 27 titles each month, almost as many as DC makes for bat titles. It's a valid complaint, and I totally agree, JP. However, I do think you don't need to read them all. I think they've gotten better since the launch in Hickman's time. They've gotten better about kind of narrowing the focus on individual books. So I don't think anybody has to read Children of the Vault or Dark X-Men. I don't think anybody has to read those. I think you could read Hellfire Gala, X-Men, and Immortal X-Men. So the Hellfire Gala is a one-off, and then the other two are monthly books, and you'd probably be able to do just fine understanding what's going on. It's more what I think they're doing with narrowing their focus is allowing people to say, hey, I love Cable. What's Cable doing? I can read this book. He's in that book. I love Storm. I can read X-Men Red, but you don't have to read X-Men Red if you don't want to. It's basically on a whole other planet for the entirety of it. So it doesn't cross over. It doesn't connect. You can feel fine being like, I love Storm. I want to know what's going on with her. I'll add that to my pull list, but I don't have to. You know, I think if you want to follow the main Earthbound X stories, it's really just 2 books a month. And I think the rest are, I don't want to say window dressing, but it's more like preference, right? If you like Madeline Pryor and you've got, Havoc and Angel, if you like these characters and you want to know what's going on with them, you pick it up. But I don't think it's required like the main X title and Immortal X-Men. Those are the main books. Those are the 2 to read. So hopefully they've gotten better. I think it was worse at the beginning when Hickman launched because I think his main X title wasn't the book that people wanted it to be. I think people wanted it to be this like overarching main story, and then the other side books would be side characters. Instead, the side books were the story, and his main title was like, I feel like if the other books were the lake of the X story, he just took a stone and he skipped it across the lake, and that's the main title. So it was like, blip, oh, there's Marauders. Blip, oh, there's Jean Grey. Blip, oh, there's Professor X. And it was massively confusing to people trying to casually read X books. I think they learned from that a little bit, and it feels like the last year they narrowed the focus somewhat. I think it's a little more functional now. I don't know. If you have to follow any 10-issue thread tie-in, it sets you back $50. I mean, that's a great point. And I think that leads me to what I want to say about Immortal Hulk. And I'm going to see if I can set this and turn this so you guys can see old Hulky here. Well, he's right there. Ooh. Can I get him up a little higher? There he is. There he is. What's up, Hulk? This Immortal Hulk omnibus just dropped, and it's $150 MSRP. It is beastly. It has over 60 comics in it, I think. Something like 50, 59, 60 comics. It has the main 50-issue Immortal Hulk run with all these amazing Alex Ross covers. But it also has, let's see, it has the 5-issue Gamma Flight story. It has the King in Black one-shot. It has the Absolute Carnage one-shot, the Defenders one-shot, the Immortal Hulk Best Defense that has portions of Avengers 684 and the Immortal Hulk Time of Monsters. So it's got a ton of comics in here. This is an absolute beast. The only reason I ended up buying this was because I didn't do what Schultze is saying. I decided at issue 25 of Immortal Hulk, I decided, look, the main arc finished. I loved it. We'll see how it goes from here. And I just backed off. They did another 25 issues, which if I had bought them at about $4 a pop, right, is $100. This omnibus with my discount is about that much money. So instead of buying the individual issues and bags and boards and storing them, I waited and I bought this. That was my logic at the time, was if it's that good, eventually there'll be some kind of a collected edition and I can enjoy it. So that was my thinking, and that's how I ended up purchasing this, or that's why I ended up purchasing this. So I have yet to read the second half of Immortal Hulk, and I'm incredibly excited to look and see what went down, because I heard very good things. Most people said the first half was better, but the second half was still really good. Let's see here. Eric says, I felt the way about Marauders. I wanted to know what Kitty was up to in the New World, so I checked it out and liked the first volume. Yeah, the second volume, not so much. I agree. Big Will snagged this as well, so I know he is pumped on that. I know it sounds like glitter and duct tape, crystals all in. Michael says, been so backed up on comics, been reading a ton of novels. What are the names of those fantasy books? Yeah, I'll share those in just a second. Let me just catch up on the chat. Potatoes Immortal was so good. Potatoes Immortal? Holy potatoes, Immortal was so good. It was great. So, and I know Mark is a big Hulk fan, so I'm sure he finished it all out and has some thoughts on how it ended. Immortal Hulk Omnibus has to be one of the biggest. I think it's the largest one I've got. And there's two different there's two different covers. I liked the Immortal cover, the Alex Ross. But yeah, this has got to be the largest omnibus in my collection. I can't imagine there's another one that takes up more space than that. That thing looks monstrous. I mean, fair. What is going on, Chet Scotland in the chat? You missed the X talk, but you're here for some still Make Mine Marvel goodness. We got Kevin again. What's going on? Entropy in Comics. How you doing, Kev? Hope things are doing well. He's got a roll, so goodbye, Schultze. I hope you're doing well. Take it easy. And let me get back to my man, Michael Downright Nerdy podcast. The books are called The King Killer Chronicles. The author is Patrick Rothfuss, spelled kind of like it sounds. The first book is called The Name of the Wind, and the second book is The Wise Man's Fear. Definitely recommend those. Yes, this is an exercise tool, Chet. You get your lifts going. You can, do some heavy lifting with that bad boy. You don't need to get, any bench press equipment. You just get a few of these bad boys and you're set. So I got this. It's going to go on my shelf for a while. I'm not sure when I'll get around to it, but I'm very happy to have it, and I'm looking forward to it. It ended with a tear in my eye. Such a great finale. I love that answer. Doesn't spoil anything. Sets me up to be enjoying it. I will probably, when I get around to it, reread the original 25 just because I like them so much. Especially the Green Door stuff. I love the stuff with the Green Door and the One Below All. And I thought that stuff was really excellent. And the artwork, phenomenal. Besides, obviously, Al Ewing doing a great job. Joe Bennett does a great job on the interior artwork. When he's on the book, it's phenomenal. Cardstock says, got my friend Name of the Wind on your recommendation. They loved it. Yes, I'm so happy to hear it. And again, I had read that one quite a while back, and I've had the hardcover for Wise Man's Fear for a really long time, knowing that once I read it, I wouldn't be able to read the third book right away. I was trying to wait it out and hope that Patrick Rothfuss would publish the third book by the time I finished that one. It did not happen. Definitely a fail. Let's see here. So there you go. Oh, Immortal Hulk can go back here, and there we go back to this. 9 3/4 months this week. Oh my God. Choosing her Potter house soon. I love it. That's great to hear, brother. That's fantastic. Oh my goodness. All right. So that catches us up on most everything. I got a few more Marvel things to talk about. And I wanted to share this because shout out to JP and let's see, Sove Collector Michael and a few others who have recommended books that I wasn't reading. And I want to start with She-Hulk. The current run of She-Hulk, which I had not heard much about, but then Sove Collector Michael was like, you got to read it. It's been really fun, really funny. You should totally check it out. There's great Jen Bartel covers for this series. I had bought issue 1 because I loved the David Nakayama cover. Phenomenal. But I hadn't read it. And I went digitally over my vacation time and read the entire run up to where they are now, because it's still coming out monthly. And I want to say they're around issue 15 or something like that somewhere. Really, really fun, really, really funny, really different, really interesting, good energy. So if you're looking for a digital read, if you have the Marvel app, highly recommend powering through it. It took me almost no time. I think I did it in a early morning. I woke up, the kids were still asleep. I got the app out and just plowed through it. Really, really fun. So highly recommend the current run of She-Hulk. And if you want something that feels like a fun, funny sitcom in a comic book, that's the book. That's the one to get. It just has zero continuity besides its own run. Lots of joy, lots of fun, and the artwork style is great. I really enjoyed the artwork. So definitely a fun read, and I'll probably get around to hanging out with Sove at some point to talk it up. Because, yeah, he definitely pushed that one. But a good digital read if you have the app. The other digital read that I read is because of JP, and that is Kelly Thompson's Black Widow, art by Elena Casagrande. For the most part, I know like most Marvel runs have to keep coming out so consistently that they tend to change artists a ton. They have the amazing Adam Hughes variant covers that you can see here. Phenomenal. Really just top Adam Hughes, always slaying, but obviously pushing himself, I think, with this Black Widow run to do something different than the normal kind of stuff he gets a lot of love for. This was fantastic as well. And in fact, I think I liked this one a little more than the She-Hulk. It's a limited run because they ended it, I want to say around, JP can remind me, I think it was issue 20, but I can't recall exactly. 18 maybe. Really, really good. There's JP shouting it out. If you watched my Instagram, I've been trying to create reels highlighting these kinds of runs when I read them, or certain story arcs when I get to them for the first time. So She-Hulk and Black Widow basically were last year they were launched, and both of them really, really popular. 15 issues, JP says. And I wasn't on the books. I should have been. I wasn't. And this is the perfect way to use that Marvel app. And I just plowed through them. And I read all of Black Widow in like a day and a half, and I read all of She-Hulk in a morning and got caught up. So big thumbs up for those books. Big recommendation if you're looking for something exciting, fun, energetic. Both of those books would be really good places to start. And yes, I was sad that it ended at 15, but it ended well. And hopefully Kelly Thompson and Elena Casagrande get something good to do up soon. I did try, Elena Casagrande did the artwork on the new Blade comic book, and I didn't love issue 1. I'm questioning buying issue 2. I'm going to look at the artwork on the inside on issue 2 and see if I want to go for it. But very talented digital artist, Elena. Gore says, I only need a few more Black Widow issues. I love how Brubaker handled the character in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Yeah, Brubaker always rising, cream of the crop there for sure. Thompson is a fantastic writer. Excited for her Birds of Prey series. When does that launch, Todd? I can't remember the date on that. You finally got to them. That's all that matters. If you're not a Black Widow collector app, reading is the way to go. Yeah. And so, like, if I had known that that I would have liked the artwork that much, I probably would have jumped on board when it first launched. I've never read a Black Widow comic before, and I haven't really read a She-Hulk run since the sensational She-Hulk, back in the day. So I have not really been on either of those characters' comics with any regularity. So this was a fun way to kind of dive in a little bit. I think they're relaunching She-Hulk as Sensational. Is it going to have the same creative team? I'd be excited for that. Next month, September. There you go. There you go. Kelly Thompson on Birds of Prey. Looking forward to it. So that catches you up on most of what I'm reading, except for, I am nearing the end on Grant Morrison's new X-Men. This is not the bookmark. This is just a placeholder I had in there. I'm on issue 140 of 154. So I'm in the last year, basically, of Grant Morrison's new X-Men. I had purchased this omnibus at the beginning of summer, knowing that it was going to be my main summer reading. And I've been dropping videos on all my social media, kind of covering key characters and key stories as I work my way through it. If you are unfamiliar, Grant Morrison is in a lot of ways the precursor to what Hickman was doing, and a lot of the same themes and character designs and stuff sort of launch here in this run. I've really been enjoying it. I think it's got big ideas like Grant Morrison's known to have. I just finished the storyline where we meet Quentin Quire, also known as Kid Omega, and it focuses on basically how an unstable mind and a lot of power can lead to devastating consequences. And you see Quentin convince a group of fellow mutant students to sort of take over the school and attempt violence. It's a really bold story that I think is captured really, really well. Frank Quitely on the artwork just, does great stuff. If you haven't read All-Star Superman by the same creative team, you're missing out on some great Superman work. See, this guy knows. He's so well read. He knows. Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I knew going in, this was a run of comics that I had not read, that I knew great things were said about. And for me, it was a chance to kind of savor the inoculation of it all. I just basically got a dose of Grant Morrison in bulk and can kind of appreciate what he's doing in that story. Absolutely. Right off the bat, rest in peace, Genosha, for sure. The same She-Hulk team will continue on, but with a new title. That sounds like Marvel. Sounds like Marvel. Gore says, you can tell Grant enjoys wreaking havoc with his characters. He writes as if he has no boundaries. I mean, I think that's the best way to do it. I think characters suffering is story, right? That is drama. That is the story for sure. Only missing like 5 issues of completing that. Underrated writing and art. Yeah. Phantom X. I just dropped a video on my Instagram about Phantom X. If you guys missed it, I was kind of breaking down who he is because I had read Uncanny X-Force last year. I had read little smatterings of other stories with him previously, but I had not read this where he's introduced for the first time. So it was a fun way to kind of reverse read the character's history and then try to break it down a little bit. So you can check that out. That's those, if you want to catch up. I'm trying to do at least 1 or 2 videos on new X-Men every week as a way to motivate myself to keep going and finish in a timely manner. Because my goal is to finish somewhere in the middle of September. And I think I can do that without any big challenge. We just crossed the 1 hour mark, and it took me all that time to go through just what I've been reading. I'll have to save any TV talk, movie talk for another time. I'm sure the girls would love to talk about how they love Barbie and all that kind of stuff at some point. But we're going to get to our day since we got a tropical storm warning for tomorrow. We want to get our yard work and stuff in today. So I'm going to get out there and sweat to the oldies a little bit. Chet says, John, I know you did X-Men already, but did you read X-Men Red? If so, your love for Storm is growing. Yeah, she does. I did read it. I did discuss it. I caught up on 4 X books you can catch in the rewind. I mentioned Dark X-Men, Children of the Vault, which I really enjoyed, Immortal X-Men, which is always a good read. And then, X-Men Red with our girl, and an exciting setup for a showdown between Genesis and Storm. So that's going to be something to look forward to as X-Men Red keeps going. So that is going to be it for me. I'm going to bounce out of here. I'm going to finish my coffee and get to my sweating labor. And I hope everybody has a happy and safe Saturday. I've got 2 live streams I'm on tomorrow, provided I don't lose power in this heavy weather we're going to get. I am going to be on Triple G's Comics Show at noon my time, which is 8 o'clock in England, where he is located. That would be, 3 o'clock Eastern. I will always post those things in my community tab, so hopefully you can find me when I go live tomorrow around 3 o'clock Eastern. And then, of course, I'm on JP's channel for D&D Sunday night, again, provided I don't have any technical problems. Always happy to give book tips, Michael, and happy to receive them in return. I'm still working on the 2nd volume of Gideon Falls, but I did the 1st volume that you sent me and passed it on, like we promised, with the library cards and everything. And I got to get my guy, and maybe this is the chance to get you on. If you and Alec and I can get together and talk about it, then he can ship them on to somebody new in the chat, right? Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend. I'll catch you guys all later. And I hope to see you guys in the chat over the course of the weekend. Hope everybody stays safe, and we'll see you guys back hopefully next Saturday. Let's see. Yeah. Bye.